controversy around Tennessee, and it's not an I guess, the big controversy around the University of Tennessee was Robert Gillespie, the one coach retained by a new head football coach, Jeremy Pruitt, left, and he was replaced by a good coach by all reports. I guess it hasn't been officially named, or has it been in the time since I've taken the air or something. But it's a safe bet to say that Chris Weinke, the 2000 Heisman Trophy winner, a quarterback, but even so, is going to be the Tennessee Volunteers' next running backs coach. I think it's a good hire. I mean, if nothing else, the reason why you would say it's a good hire is because you recognize the name. Or I recognize the name. But I think you do too. I mean, the man's a Heisman Trophy winner. I guess one could also then step back and say, quarterback, coaching running backs, what's up with the... But, okay. Track record of Weinke. I mean, you said, well, I remember he was very good at Florida State. Yes, I've always wondered what would have happened if he was the quarterback in the Fiesta Bowl in 98. They'd forget that Florida State had a backup quarterback in that game. But anyway... Isn't it? It's great to hire someone away from Alabama. And that leads to the first thing that I want to say. When you're going from national champion to 4-8 team that has lost 11 straight games or whatever it is to Tennessee, you must really hate Nick Saban. Of course, Nick Saban is a guy who will grate on you. Let's face facts here. So it's kind of like, Jeremy, take me with you. Please, please. You kind of get that idea of Chris Weinke. But the thing is, Phil Fulmer is not happy, or I should say Phil Fulmer is telling people, as he did in a speaking engagement yesterday, that Gillespie not pleased with having to leave the Vols. And in fact, there's a bit of scumminess. No, there's a lot of scumminess. Because Gillespie, supposedly the best recruiter on the staff, and then as soon as recruiting comes about and is over, he's let go, unemployed, and Pruitt hires his own man. You thought what Josh McDaniel did was less than classy to the Indianapolis Colts. What about what happened with Richard Gillespie? Of course, Fulmer is one that knows how to get his own way and does not care about the dead bodies that pile up around him. Just ask John Majors. Just ask John Curry. But nevertheless, Fulmer saying this is a big boy's business. He understood. He was very professional. We talked yesterday. It was simply a matter of Coach Pruitt doing what he thought was right for his program. And Robert? Really? Pruitt decided to attempt to upgrade his coaching staff with another coach. Jeremy Pruitt, new Vols head coach. Former ASA college head coach Joe Ozovet announced he was going to join Tennessee staff on Wednesday. However, he's not going to be on the field, and he won't be replacing Gillespie as the running backs coach. So that's another source right there. It does appear to be, Gillespie not exactly the happiest man in the world about this, is he? And he's not leaving. It's not like the director of player personnel that they had who left to go to Nebraska, but, had a position there and all this. Now, I do, Weinke, big football name. I think that can help, certainly. We are looking at this. He would be the 10th. All the reporting is that he'll be the 10th assistant. I'm telling you right now, for me, things just don't look good at Tennessee. 4-8 record. And by the way, who was the guy in the local media who reported to you, I know the Vols are ranked 23rd in the preseason, but I've got this issue of Athlon, and I think they're being picked this way because of the program's reputation and the program's history. because there wasn't a single unit that Athlon, coming into the 2017 season, said that Tennessee ranked in the upper half of the SEC in. In other words, 14 SEC teams, and they rank all the units, quarterbacks, running backs, defensive backs, etc., on a 1 to 14 scale. Who has the best, who has the worst, this sort of thing. Georgia, obviously, last year had the best running backs, okay? They would be number one. There was not a single position, not offensive line, not specialty, nothing that Tennessee, according to Athlon at the start of last season, ranked Tennessee in the upper half of the SEC in. And they were the only school that was the case, Ole Miss has Shea Patterson. They're going to rank highly with quarterbacks, or at least they did have Shea Patterson. They don't anymore. It's with Michigan. But guess what? See? Now you see why the Vols didn't win a game in the SEC? Athlon had that. People didn't want to pick against Tennessee because they're Tennessee. And they have a very good reputation. Colin Cowherd's been on air. I've listened to him say he thinks that Tennessee can be the South's Michigan. That's high praise. I don't know if I quite agree with that. And in fact, I wonder about, with the lack of football talent in Tennessee as compared to other states in the South, if the Vols can really expect to compete for SEC East riches every year as they once did. All right, that being said, they want to go back to the era in which they were successful. That explains why Fulmer becomes the athletic director, even though the trend is to go away from the former coach becoming the athletic director. But they need to have a feel good. They get a coordinator from Alabama, the national champion. One could do far worse, just that everybody was turning them down left and right, the side of Greg Schiano, before all the head coaches did. And then as soon as Fulmer got on, they said, you know what, this guy could be kind of meddlesome. And so Fulmer looked at coordinators and not head coaches who already had jobs, who said, I don't know if I want to have this man look over my shoulder as much as I think that he could. Again, the way this was handled with Gillespie and such borders on outrageous. Oh yeah, we want you to recruit, but we don't want you out here anymore. That's not ethical. And if that's what went down, and it appears that it did, that's a strike against the Vols. And that sort of stuff comes back out against you, because that shows if that's how you're going to treat people, how are you going to treat the players? And that's what recruits are going to be asked and wonder in the future. Another football note that I saw, and I just wanted to finish up with this comment. I know people driving out and about. Sebastian Janikowski, if he plays in the NFL anymore, the author of, speaking of Florida State and, 1998 and that period, Sebastian Janikowski, Chris Weinke and all this. Speaking of that, he is no longer going to be an Oakland Raider. He was hurt for a lot of last season. He's been in the league since 2000. I remember watching Sebastian Janikowski kick at Three Rivers Stadium. Three Rivers Stadium last hosted an athletic contest in December of 2000. Been around a while. Still somewhat effective. I would be surprised if Janikowski wants to play if another team doesn't offer to give him a look. I mean, kickers generally, look how long Morton Anderson kicked. My goodness, look how long George Blanda in a previous era kicked. Look how, Adam Vinatieri more contemporarily. Kickers always seem to be, it's a kicker. You're a specialist. You're not really hired for your tackling ability on kickoffs. Two things come to mind, well, actually three things come to mind with Janikowski. The 64-yard field goal, which beat Tom Dempsey's by a yard. I still think, though, that Tom Dempsey's field goal, even with all the field goals that have won Super Bowls, is the greatest field goal. It may not be the record anymore, but yeah, half a foot, 63 yards, kicking from your own 37. Nobody thinks you're going to make this, breaking the old record, held by Tennessee's Burt Rechichar, by the way, by 7 yards. Even Burt Rechichar, I spoke to him, I've done this, said, I was so proud of him for doing it. I thought it was just great. By the way, a sad piece of news, Tom Dempsey, suffering from dementia. He's in his 70s now. But yeah, I still say, but I think of the record-breaking kick he along with Jason Elam. But those were, the other thing about why Dempsey's kick is greater than the ones that beat him is that those were done in Mile High. Come on. Dempsey had every handicap in the world working against him. Muddy Tulane Stadium field. Tulane Stadium, how much above sea level could that possibly have been? He's not doing soccer style, he's doing straight ahead. I don't mean to live in the past, but yeah, I still think Dempsey's field goal, way back when, 1970, the 63-yarder is the greatest field goal in NFL, or really football history. Inspirational. Absolutely inspirational. How many people, he just talked about a model who appeared in the swimsuit issue of Sports Illustrated, even though she had lost a leg. Or my old friend John Siciliano, who suffered the same fate, and he becomes an actor who's able to appear on a primetime series. What, to someone who maybe has a physical handicap, did Tom Dempsey's field goal mean to them? And what did it inspire them to do? And to say, you can do it. Sebastian Janikowski is a little bit different. I guess, not exactly the athlete's build, let's face facts. So I guess if you're a few pounds overweight, maybe that's a bit of inspiration to you, Janikowski. But the 64-yard field goal comes to mind of one of the three things. Lane Kiffin asking Janikowski to try a 74-yard field goal at the end of a half in 2008. University of Tennessee, when Lane Kiffin was willing to ask Janikowski to do that, and by the way, 74 yards, no, the man has not been made yet who can reliably kick that, not even Janikowski with his strong leg. That might have said, do we want such a strategist coaching Tennessee? I know it's the big thing now to hire the old NFL coach to come to college, but do we want the guy who thinks the 74-yarder is makeable, especially in this era of returning field goals back? Is that what we want? Tennessee probably should have thought of that a little bit more, as well as what Al Davis was saying about the guy. But nevertheless, they made their bed, and now they have had to lie in it for the last 10 years. Final thought on Janikowski, and this is, I guess, hearsay, but it's positive hearsay, so I'm going to look at this. When I'm not doing sports talk or, been in the sports media, I used to be a cab driver, actually. Loved that position very much. And I remember one of the fairs, it was outside the area, and I remember one of the drivers, drivers get to talking, and I won't give you old cab driver stories here because, frankly, unless they're on, say, Taxi or something, they get to be a little boring. But this one isn't. And it stems from the fact that I knew a driver who actually had Sebastian Janikowski as a fare. I won't give you all the great details, but let me just put it this way. Janikowski gave the cabbie $500 for his services, and they stayed local. I know Janikowski had some personal troubles at Florida State and at the start of his career. That's a story, though, about Janikowski I felt needed to get out there. So, will he have a chance to extend his career by a year, 2, possibly 3? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, kickers after they've been cut are out, usually are in demand. But you know something? Even if it doesn't, maybe that's another accomplishment of Sebastian Janikowski that should be really cherished. You know me, I don't like the fact the Raiders are moving to Las Vegas. the team of aggression, bad guys, hardcore rap, moving to Vegas and becoming the team of Steve and Edie. Okay, fine. However, and this needs to be said, if Janikowski doesn't play anymore, he'll be the last Oakland Raider. Iconic franchise. There's something to be said for that. Roy Campanella, although it took tragedy for it to happen, he was probably the last Brooklyn Dodger. That's identity. It's a romantic one. And that's why all these years later we still talk about Campanella. And I'm sure football fans will, for another 50 years as well, talk about Janikowski, one way or the other. Tri-City Sports Now, I'm going to come back here. Now the Daytona 500 is on, Winter Olympics, and a lot more, if I may quote Chuck Barris, stuff. Provides regional art.